probably
Hi there, Dish Feels Good Live.
conjecture,
Very extreme
particularly
BBC
whilst people are gathering
journalist
information and data on which
presenter scandal,
life-changing decisions
UK
could be made.
23.
Yes, and that issue of facts is an important one, isn't it? Two disputed accounts this morning, one blaming the other.
And I think it's important to recognise that out of that, so we have this young individual retained lawyers and has denied that anything illegal took place. And of course, yesterday the police made an announcement, which was that they didn't even have enough to start an investigation, let alone bring charges. So there is quite a long way to go yet. And it does appear that even the police don't think that there's an obvious criminal offence having been committed. And of course, that reduces any public interest in naming the presenter.
Yeah, and what does this do in terms of putting the focus back on the Sun newspaper? One would assume to present some evidence if that exists.
Well, I think that's right. I mean, clearly, parents can be concerned. There's a legitimate public interest in parents expressing concerns about their offspring. But of course, we have to remember that in this case, the individual is now 20 years old, and as a consequence of that, is a person of majority and can make their own choices. And we do see in the law quite often
it's like the
split and
Still
divide over different issues.
what you call it,
of course,
in
it's the
ITV1
young individual's
situation again.
decision how to take this forward. And we've seen that they've employed their own lawyers who have made it clear, both they say to the Sun and to the BBC, that there is nothing to see here, no criminality, no wrongdoing, and in those circumstances it's difficult to see where the Sun takes this now.
Yes, and it seems that over the weekend there were sort of two elements to this, weren't there? The allegations themselves and then the way that the BBC had handled this. And the more we learn, we get a sense that those two are very linked because perhaps the BBC's response is based on that perhaps lack of evidence.
Yes, I mean, I think that there will be an inquiry from Tim Davie, the Director General of the BBC, into how this happened. But of course, one has to remember that in these situations where you're talking about a staff member, whether that's at the BBC, the office, or the factory, the individual is entitled to have, under employment law, the allegations confidentially investigated. And of course, we also have to layer into this particular dynamic the fact that all sorts of wild allegations are deposited at the BBC's door about presenters. So how do you weed that out is obviously an issue which is going to trouble the BBC going forward, I suspect.
Yeah, Mark, what's your assessment of what happens next year?
I think that there will be an investigation. It has to be careful and thorough. And I think then we decide whether or not there have been any employment. And of course, the police will decide whether they want to investigate. If they don't, it's just down to the BBC. If they do, the BBC has to step aside while the criminal investigation or any criminal investigation were to go on, because of course you don't want HR professionals trampling through the evidence field, gathering statements and things in a way which would be unhelpful to the police.
Okay, Mark, thank you. Mark Stevens there, joining us from outside BBC headquarters. Thank you.
There you go, guys.
It is 7:37 exactly. Now, the British tennis...
Like this video, please thumbs up. Subscribe to my show on Sunday Gems, my friends Mike and Jimbo on ITF Friday. So here's a race station show every Friday, 3 to 5 p.m. analog. In digital, like 5000 to 7000. ITF Friday feeding. So here's race station show. And this is me on Lara's show, live with John and Matt on the Woking race station show. On Lara's show, every Sunday at 9 to 12 p.m. Like this video, please subscribe to my show on Sunday Gems. Please a thumbs up. Press the thumbs up on the left side of the screen. Please watch this video. Please subscribe to my show on Sunday Gems. Smile, be happy. Bye.